Placing accumulators or Accas is perhaps the biggest mistake you can ever make when you're football betting. In this video I'm going to break down how you lose thousands and thousands of pounds worth of value when you place Accas. To understand why Accas are such bad value, we'll first need to understand the mechanics of betting odds on a bookmaker. A football game has three possible outcomes obviously, a home win, an away win or a draw. As these are the only three possible outcomes, the total probability of one of these three events occurring is obviously 100%. It can't end in any other way. When we're betting, we're placing a wager on a game based on the probability that the bookmaker is offering us. The probability is commonly shown in either fractions or decimals, but what we can do is convert these odds into percentages. Let's take a look at a football game then and show you the odds. It's currently the international break, so these are all international fixtures. So I'm going to select a match at random here, and that is Georgia versus Kosovo. We can convert the odds the bookmaker is offering us into percentages. Once we've converted the odds to percentages, we can sum the total percentages up. In theory, this should equal 100%, as we've mentioned before, nothing else can happen except from a home win, away win, or a draw. But when you do the total of the percentages, you see that you get a value of 106%. So what's going on here? It's physically impossible to be over 100%. So what is this extra 6%? This is called the book value, and this is the bookmaker's edge over you. Every bookmaker has to offer you bad value odds in order to profit from you long term. Bad value odds result in a book value being over 100%. When you look at the same game on a betting exchange and do the same thing with the odds and convert them to percentages, you see that the book value is only just slightly over 100%. This means that the odds on a betting exchange are much better, as they are a much truer reflection on reality. The result of a lower book value equals better valued odds, which means more money that you can make when placing bets. When placing a single bet, let's keep things simple here and use £1 stakes on Georgia to win against Kosovo. You see that the difference between placing a bet on a bookmaker with a bad book value and placing a bet on an exchange with a good book value is that you'll make more money by placing the bet on the exchange than you would on a bookmaker. You might look at the difference in returns and think that is very slight, and yes, it is only 8p. But remember, we are using a £1 stake here, and if you was using a £100 stake, that 8p would be an £8 difference, an £8 value loss. But even still, that is only a relatively small amount of value lost compared to what you see when you're placing Accas. First of all, what is an accumulator, or an Acca? An Acca is multiple bets all combined into one. So let's say you want 5 teams to win, you put all that in one bet and use one stake. Let's say you place a £10 back stake on a 4-fold accumulator and the 4 selections were all priced at 3 to 1, or in decimal odds, priced at odds of 4.0. So how does the Acca work? The Acca works by placing the £10 stake on the first selection in the Acca. So £10 at odds of 4 returns £40. That's a £30 win plus your £10 stake. This £40 is carried over to the next leg. So in essence, the second leg, you're placing a £40 bet at odds of 4.0. If that wins, it wins £160. For the third leg, that £160 is being placed on the next leg of the selection, also priced at odds of 4.0. So £160 at odds of 4.0 returns £640. So as you can see here, all that's happening is you're placing singles and just carrying over the winnings of the previous bet and putting it on the next leg in the accumulator. And then finally, the last leg of this Acca, you're placing a £640 bet at odds of 4.0 to win over £2,500. But really what you're doing there is placing a £640 bet on something which has an implied probability of 25% chance of occurring. This £2,500 figure though is what makes accumulators so appealing to the average football bettor. You can win a massive amount of money from a relatively small stake. But yes, when we break down the mechanics of an accumulator, all that's really happening is you're placing several single bets with each time increasing the stakes until you get an enormous stake on a bet. This isn't the problem though. The problem is the book values we was talking about at the top of this video. Bookmakers are offering you worse values than the exchange, and those 6% we was talking about earlier add up really quickly, which makes you lose an enormous amount of value when you place Accas. You can only place single bets on a betting exchange, but as we discussed above, an Acca is just placing lots of single bets and placing the winnings of each single bet onto the next single bet. So what I'm going to do is show you a comparison between the equivalent single bets placed on a betting exchange and an accumulator on a bookmaker. I've already showed you the difference of what happens when you place a £1 single bet in that Kosovo game. It was only an 8p loss. However, what I'm going to do is add selections one by one and make this an accumulator to see how much value you actually lose. Before doing this, I'd just like to point out that all the winnings I show from Betfair are all taken after commission. So this is the true value of what you'd win if you place these same bets on a betting exchange. Okay, so let's just start picking selections here at random. If we had a draw between the Czech Republic and Belarus to our Georgia win from earlier, we see the £1 double returns about £13.50 on a bookmaker. The equivalent bet on a betting exchange would return nearly £18, so that's £4.40 worth of value. And remember, this is only on £1 stakes. If you was using a £10 stake accumulator, that would be £44 worth of value, not just £4.40. If we had a third selection and get a treble, let's say a draw between England and Hungary, this treble on a bookmaker would return around £60 on a £1 stake. And if you place the same equivalent bet on an exchange, you'd return £82. That's over £21 more than what you'd return on the bookmaker. Remember again, scale this up to £10 stakes. We're talking about £210 worth of value lost placing this treble. Add a fourth selection to get an accumulator. Let's say Lithuania to win this game here. On a bookmaker, this fourfold returns £273. On a betting exchange, these bets would return over £400, nearly £150 worth of missed value. Again, on the screen now I'm showing what it would be with a £10 stake on this accumulator. Add a fifth selection, Iceland to win their game, and we're getting a return of £695 from the bookmaker. And you look at the equivalent bet from a betting exchange, we're now talking well over £1,000 just by placing the bet using proper odds on the betting exchange. With a sixth selection, let's say Sweden to win, the sixfold wins £3,130 on a bookmaker. You might be thinking, this isn't bad, this is still a lot of money. You're winning thousands and thousands of pounds. But the same 6 bets placed on an exchange would return over £2,500 more money at around £5,700. Do you really want to lose that much money just by placing the bets on a sportsbook in an accumulator form? Matters only get worse when we add a 7th selection, Poland to beat Albania in this case. Again, I'm showing you the numbers on screen here. You've been missing out on over £4,000 worth of value by placing the accumulator. Again, I like to point out this is only £1 stake and you're losing £4,000 worth of value. If this was a £10 accumulator, you'd be losing £40,000 worth of value. Yes, £40,000. Imagine placing this bet and it coming in and realising that if you placed it on an exchange instead, you would have won an extra £40,000. I'll add one more selection in just for fun. Let's say Andorra to win. The bookmakers winnings from placing this accumulator, 8-fold accumulator, would have been about £7,000, which is still a lot of money of course, but by now you probably realise that on the exchange it'll be a lot higher, and that's correct. On a betting exchange, this bet would return almost double what it would return on a bookmaker. Yes, that's £14,000 you would make by placing the same bet on a betting exchange. So by placing an accumulator, you're losing half of your value. That's something you shouldn't want to afford to be doing. If you've not picked up already, the trend here is that the more legs you have in the Acca, the more value that you lose with each additional leg. This is best shown on this graph here, which shows you how much money you're being rigged out of by the bookmaker. This graph may seem to exonerate Accas, which have a small amount of selections. However, this is just because the scalings are so off here. If we change this graph to be of a percentage rather than the absolute values, you see even with a small selection Acca, you lose so much value compared to placing the bets on the betting exchange. The lesson learned here is that Accas are very poor value and should be avoided in order to maximise your profits when betting. My advice is to stick to singles, and my advice even more is to place the singles on a betting exchange. It might not seem so much at the start, remember there was only 8p in that first selection, but this lost value builds up over time, and simply changing to a betting exchange will make you win so much more money betting than you realise. If you do still want to place Accas at the weekend, small stakes for a bit of fun, then more power to you. But at least now you know the ways that the bookmakers are ripping you off. Please feel free to stay and watch this video I think you'd like. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.